these are a few new pieces. This one is kind of close to the ones I cut that I was trying to compare to the ones that were all green, and I found that they're still, like, the skin, I don't know if you can see it, but the skin is still intact and juicy and fleshy. So those ones peeled just as well as the ones that were green all the way to the bottom. So it seems like it's more of a texture of the skin thing than the color, which is cool. So even though these ones look like they're pretty late, it's not until they start to get kind of pruny almost and dry that you can see it's starting to change the quality of the skin itself. But let's try this one and see. Like, you can see, like, the inside part is already turning kind of brown and getting soggy. But let's see how the skin behaves, or to get the and all the cats are here to help, so that's helpful. So it's a lot drier. The stalk is already kind of turning brown. It's less snappy. It's getting a little, like, funny colored spots where it's starting to get moldy or algae. And the skin still comes off real well. So that's nice. When the skin gets really papery and thin, and you kind of have to fight with it. But I'll try to keep taking little videos so we can see how they behave differently. So this one, that skin has gotten a lot thinner and it's really soft. It's not going to snap at all to help start start peeling the fibers out of the skin, but they're all still right there. Let's see if we can do that trick where we can twist. I hope we can do it. Oh yeah. So it's just kind of like scraping and twisting it off. And you can see it's like, it's a little bit smearier. But we'll see how it behaves after they're dry. But again, the part we want to work with seems to be still easy to get out of there. It's kind of harder to tell what's what because it's all kind of brown and soft. Oh yeah, see, and that's like pulling the fibers. They are starting to pull apart because the parts of the plant makes to kind of glue itself together are rotting away. So it's going to be fine. It'll make fine cord because the fibers are still strong. They're just not coming off as long, and it's hard to tell what's good and what's not. It's all kind of slimy. So it's a much less enjoyable process than the other skins, but it's all still there. And as it dries, that will make a cord that will certainly hold your things together if that's what you need. But it's really goopy and kind of hard to tell what's what. But that's nice. And I think if you're, like trying to scrape the skin part off is just resulting in sort of pulling everything to pieces. So I'm gonna let that dry and see how it works or how it feels when it's dry, but it's certainly not as satisfying a process as the last ones. But let's see this one. Oh, it's already getting kind of funky inside. Whoa. Oh, hi, guy. Oh, sorry. I'm going to try to put him out the window. Put them out the window. A little sow bug. Sorry, Ray. There. Okay. And this on the bottom looks like it's very similar. It's like the skin itself has broken down. It looked better at the end. So let's see. Or I should say it looked less ripe or less far along at the end. Like where the aerial parts of the plant and like the flowers and the seeds were. But it still feels really slimy. And it's just kind of harder to see. Oh, there we go. That's pretty nice. I think. All right, so that one also was kind of, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It'll certainly work, but nothing about this is as pleasant as the ones that were greener. Ugh. It's just putting, to me, this one looked kind of similar to the ones I picked the other day, but maybe they're all just kind of entering a new phase of the program. Oh, this one's a little more fleshy. I mean, in those others, if you're in a pinch and you really needed to tie something to your pack or lash something together for a shelter, there's nothing wrong with that at all, and it'll be pretty strong. The string that I've been making from the other fibers, it kind of feels like a nylon, like a thin nylon string. Oh, that's still snappy. But now that feels so luxurious. But let's see. It's not really doing it. That's got a good piece. Okay, there we go. So at least that one on the end is still giving us like a similar effect. Oh, it felt so much better. And it smells like cucumbers. That's really nice. And a lot of that green is still stuck on there, like we were finding the other day. But it sections down so easily. And that end is, those feathery ends are real nice. All right, so that was that last one that you could see the texture of the skin still looked smooth. The skin didn't look pruny yet or shrunken, dried out a little. And eventually the skin almost seems like at the base it rots away and shows the white part of the stalk, and then you can kind of crack the stalk to get the last of the dried fibers off there in the winter. But this is nice because I've always thought that working with milkweed was sort of laborious for what you get out of it, but I think it's all timing. It's like so many things. If you know when to harvest something, so it's easiest to work with, it's a much different experience than even a little bit earlier or a little bit later. And I guess that's my takeaway from this process, is that as soon as it starts to look like it's worth being curious about, it's good to start working with them and see, how does it feel when they look like this, or when they're this far along with the rest of their life cycle, and how does that change even a few weeks apart. There's just a lot to learn. But this one's still appealing really well. And it's like that skin is still has a little bit of snap in it, which the other ones we just tried had no snap at all left. It was all kind of squishy. And yeah, there we go. Oops. So that's kind of neat. And I know for next year, after I made this little video and shared it, so many cool friends are like, hey, there's milkweed here or here, you should go look. And now, even though it feels like it probably, based on this experiment, is too late in southern Maine for milkweed that's growing out in the field, because it's already kind of turning black and opening up for its to release their seeds, which is great. That's just what they need to be doing, but it's not the most enjoyable for this process. But you know, it might be worth playing around with them and seeing what else they might be good for. They probably make good tinder still, and the stalks dried out might also be helpful for something to add to your tinder bundle if you break them up a bit. But I think I might be at the tail end of fiber processing for this year, but it was fun. There's a lot to learn, and I love what the plant is yielding. I made a cord for a necklace that I've worn for a week or so, kind of sleeping and waking, and just to see how the cord held up, and it's really cool. It's working very well, and it's not, I thought it might soften up a little bit. It hasn't yet, but it's only been a week, so maybe that will. And I'm not wearing it in the water, like when I bathe, so I don't want to soak the rest of it. That's pretty nifty. And those are those other fibers from the real squashy skin, and it's really hard to tell, like, where's the skin, where's the fiber. And I'm hesitant to scrape too much because it is pulling them all to pieces. But again, we'll see how that looks when it's dry. It might be a whole other situation. Doing this inside is a lot less pleasant than outside, but oops. That's pretty nice. And it does smell like cucumbers. but you can see it's already, you know, rotting through, and that will start to color the fiber too, which can be beautiful. It's already kind of getting the spots, like Appaloosa string. Oops. It's kind of hard to get a handle on that one. And I haven't tried spinning this with a spindle. I haven't learned yet how to spin flax or fibers like that, and I suspect this might behave, I don't know, might behave similar to that. We'll have to try that out and see. But in any case, for what I've done thus far, making it into a cord has been perfect. So let me get some of the dried stuff and we can see what that looks like. And here's sort of my big haul from the last few days, and it's a lot of material. It's probably less than 10 stalks worth. I can't remember, but that's all from that one we just did today. So there's several different plants in there. This is all dried out, and it feels kind of starchy still. Oh, it smells so good. And some of the pieces are very, very long. So if just to show you what happens next, if you want to, there's lots of different ways to do this, and it's kind of good to listen to your body and look at what other people do and see what works for you. There's kind of no wrong way to do it, but this is going to make a pretty fine cord. To get it started, I just make a twist, and I twist it as tightly as I can and kind of fold it back on itself and twist it against itself. And there were probably a lot of crafts that we might have done as kids where you twist yarn as much as you can one way and then you double it up and let it coil itself up. So it's essentially what that is. It's making that little twist. And then I pinch where they join. And for the piece of the fibers that's on top, I twist it as tight as I can away from myself. So I'm twisting this way, and then I wrap it down over that lower bundle, and then I twist again as tight as I can. And you don't really want to go that far out, because you can see I'm going to let it go and it's going to partly untwist. There's some really cool ways you can twist both against your leg and then let it go and let them do this. But I haven't had much luck with that yet. But it's like anything. Probably seeing somebody do it and getting a feel for it that way would be helpful. So again, I'm twisting up, and then I'm going to pull that down and over. twist that one up, pull it down and over, and I'm just going to keep pinching where they join so they don't untwist. And how tightly you pull both those clumps as you're working determines how even the cord will be. And sometimes you can give it a twist from the other side, especially when you're starting. Once it starts to get quite long, it's trickier to do that, but because you're going to be unraveling something as you twist one thing one way, you're going to be unraveling it the other way. So a lot of this is how I'm gauging the thickness of the string or the cord is by how it feels in my fingers. Does it feel the same or thinner than it did before? And eventually, oh, it's so fun. And then other people find this to be a completely horrible and monotonous task that they would never want to do. So it's kind of, what's your jam? When it starts to feel thin, when these start to feel thin, oh, that's really thin, to my fingers, there are a couple of ways to splice in new fiber. So here, let's give it a back contrast. So one way to do it is to kind of lay a clump of new material across both like legs of the, or both sides of the cordage, and just kind of keep twisting it in. This is nice because it does feel strong, like that joint feels pretty strong because you've got some of that fiber on both sides, and like this side feels thicker than this side. So I'm gonna just take a tiny bit of the bottom one and like squish it in with the top. There's a lot of latitude with what works, and kind of sharing that, passing stuff back and forth works really well with that way of splicing to both sides. The one thing that's kind of awkward about it is you do end up going from, like, it gets tapered down, the cord will taper down and get thin, and then you'll add a new piece in and it gets kind of chunky, and you'll get a thick spot because you're going from it feathering down to being really thick all of a sudden. Another way to do it is to, I'm kind of using up my little shorties here, is to kind of start with a little bit on, and just adding a little to both, each side on its own. And what I do for that is, you can see it kind of overlaps a little, just because it's hard to know, it's hard to get a hand on it. It's kind of slippery. So I'm going to twist that and then just fold that stuff back and kind of get it with the next twist. And both sides thinned out at the same time because of the way I had set it up. So I'm going to add, and I'm working with all the little short pieces because I want to save the bigger pieces for something else. So that kind of way of splicing it ends up giving you like little feathery pieces that kind of stick out. Oops, I'm sorry. There you go. So you can come back later and just kind of clip those off if you are bothered by them, or if they're making it hard to thread something through. So there's that. And you just keep going as long as you want to, or can stand to, or have material to work with. And then this stuff you can use for all sorts of things. They're fun to make nets with. They're great for strings for things, or cords for things. And again, it's hard to focus on that. This feels a lot like the texture of a nylon cord or string. That's that. And there's a lot to work with. It's really fun. I'm really happy that Milkweed caught my attention this year, and at the time of year it did. I think for me, that's the hardest part about foraging. When I'm excited about something and when I notice it and when I remember that it's there, isn't always at the best time to harvest or work with them. So this year it just worked out, and I'm really happy to share what I've learned with you. And there's going to be a ton more to learn. So this is just the beginning.